My friends, we are here on the 1 week schedule. Got us brewery for here right now. I've probably opened up some of Lapaloo's wines before. This is a very special Lapaloo though. Lapaloo's a organic biodynamic producer, but mostly based in breweries. Got some plots in Côte de Brewery as well. Um, this some of the more distinguished wine experts here may understand that this is not the normal bottle that you would have for a brewery bottle. It's a Bordeaux bottle. It's not the sort of more elegant, feminine shaped bottle that you would often get. That's because this is a crazy cuvee. It's called Cuvée de Fou for a reason, which means crazy cuvee. And this wine, guys, this wine is basically it's made in a very very intense style. So usually when you are going to treat a Beaujolais, it's going to have pretty much no treatment. Like Beaujolais Nouveau, it's literally wine right off the press. That's why it's got a 6 month shelf life. It's like the wine that I made when I was making my own wine in my basement a couple of years ago. Uh, Good for just a little bit of time, not good for long storage. Regular Beaujolais Village, it lasts for about a year. It can be good, but and it is good. It is good, but it's very light and fruity. And then sometimes you'll get a little bit of oak treatment on some of the crus, right? The crus like Bruy, it's one of the Beaujolais crus, which means it's one of the better areas in France in Beaujolais. So the wine is of higher quality. This Bruy is on a hill, right? It gets the light rather than being on the plain, where the stuff tends to be a little bit hotter and less elegant. So anyway, Cuvée de Fou's fun because it's very, very intense. It's very, very concentrated. It's got a lot of oak in it. So not what you would normally do with the Beaujolais. And from what I understand from the story, the reason that it's using a Bordeaux bottle is because he made it on a whim and he didn't have any bottles available for using Beaujolais, so he had to get like bottles really quick on the market. And so he ended up getting Bordeaux, and it kind of just stuck with it. So anyway, it's very rich, which is interesting. So I don't have as much today. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to check out, but I just could be honest, like I did not have the time with work to take care of it. So, but I did have some good stuff for you, and I'm going to be able to answer a lot of questions. The main thing I wanted to talk about is CERN today. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with CERN. You guys know CERN? CERN is the Large Hadron Collider, the thing that was ostensibly exactly, Deerberg. The thing that was ostensibly, and I believe this is true, although I don't believe that it's everything, that it's used to find subatomic particles. And, very benign, very natural, scientific, scientific matter, which is why you'd have someone like Tom Hanks, for instance. Tom Hanks would be someone who would, be the person to turn on the Large Hadron Collider because that makes a lot of sense that Tom Hanks would be connected with a very, very deep international science project that deals with quantum physics and subatomic particles. It's very interesting, right? Why the fuck was Tom Hanks the one who's flipping the switch? Okay, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with CERN. So a lot of symbolism. So there's a statue that people have connected has been going around. It's of Shiva, destroyer of worlds. And so you have this statue in the middle of the square at CERN that is basically it's dedicated to her. That I forget exactly the event in New York, but they had it on the Empire State Building in New York. The World Health Organization had the same statue in their meeting with China, right? Remember, the World Health Organization with Trump just recently defunded. Okay. So there's a lot of symbolism to this. But there was an interesting thing that I heard. And of course, impossible to verify everything here. I saw the video, but it's impossible to verify the sort of aftermath. But there was a human sacrifice that was conducted in front of that statue at CERN. There's a video of it, and it's very, very creepy, right? Very much eyes wide shut kind of thing. Very, very creepy. And this guy's watching it, and then when they take out the knife and they go and they jab it in the girl, the sacrificial girl, who's a very young girl, right? Looks like she's like mid-teens, maybe somewhere between 12 and 17. Okay. So their explanation of this is like, oh, some pranksters came in. Some pranksters just came into, the CERN grounds, snuck past security. These pranksters, they just decided to do this human sacrifice ritual. Kids these days acting so crazy, right? Very unsatisfying explanation. Um, Especially because, and this is where we don't have enough verification, but especially because the alleged source of the video was killed. Allegedly, he was killed. Now that's hearsay because we don't know it, and the person who had reposted the video claimed that he didn't want to give any more information about it because he was afraid of similar things happening to him. Which I get. I get. Maybe that's the case. But uh, look, let's just think: what is the likelihood of all these people who we know are involved with that stuff? What's the likelihood of this fake ritual going on in the middle of the night in a secure area versus maybe a real thing that's going on? I don't know, but it's certainly interesting, right? It's certainly interesting to see this. And look, guys, if you've been following this, you understand that a lot of the stuff that's going on is timeline related, right? And so science is very, very in quantum physics. The study of subatomic particles is very, very important towards a lot of the fighting and outcomes that are decided. It's a lot of people like to look at this as if it's some sort of surface operation. There's a lot of stuff that's going on like in this realm, but like on the very edge of this realm, basically interfacing with higher dimensions, and that sort of science is very, very important for that kind of stuff. The Hadron Collider was a very, very controversial thing. People were raising questions about it. It's also interesting that it's like partially in Switzerland, partially in France. And I can speculate on the significance of that, although I don't really know. But it's kind of interesting that they would deliberately put it on a border. Um, so anyway, that stuff is kind of strange. But I think here's like where they kind of gets thrown in your face. Tom Hanks turns on the Large Hadron Collider. Like, can someone explain that to me? Because that seems pretty strange. So, interesting with the World Health Organization, though. Trump pulls funding from the World Health Organization, and then the World Health Organization, everyone's flipping out about that. They're, oh, I'm so upset. And now, after that, we start to have all this focus on China. And now it's like, well, actually, yeah, it looks like it was a virus that was being studied. And then the person who I think pretty much discovered AIDS is saying that the Wuhan virus has Wuhan coronavirus, right? Some people are calling it the Wuhan coronavirus, that it has been spliced with HIV. And we'd heard that very early on, but then it was kind of diminished. And who knows if it's true, right? Maybe a strain is like that. But the point is that ever since Trump pulled the funding away and everybody's like, first they freak out, and then it's like, okay, well, maybe we can start to admit that, yeah, this is a bioengineered virus. Whether it was intended by the Chinese government to be released to attack people, maybe it wasn't in its final form, but certainly it's engineered. This was not the wet market bullshit, although it may be spread through the wet market. And I don't think that wet markets are a good thing. But anyway, so some interesting stuff going on over there. A couple other things I wanted to just bring up. So, just a little bit more on the Gates stuff. Look, all right. We got to say this first. You got to say this first, okay? Because it is after Easter. Hey, man. Hello from New Jersey. It is after Easter, and there are a lot of people who are a lot of you guys have been pacing me with this. You understand what I'm saying, but there's a lot of people also who, the smart people, and I get it, who are a little disappointed, right? A little disappointed, and I get it. I get it because I will not become a cyborg. Although, I would consider nanites. We'll see what happens with that in the future. That may be a prerequisite of being able to travel to different worlds. Although, guys, I don't really expect that's going to be me. I think it's my children. I'm pretty sure my children will be involved with that, but that's probably not my role. I'm probably going to hang out here on planet Earth. Maybe I'll go on a trip once. Maybe I'll go to Mars just to see it. Just to see it. When my future son is in the Space Force. But what are they saying here? So people are a little bit disappointed. Yeah, exactly. So people are a little disappointed because they want these fireworks. They want everything to just like happen. There are people who are talking in queue about, and there's like there's going to be like live streaming of justice on television. All the TVs are going to be like controlled by Trump, and he's going to broadcast military tribunals. And it's like, all right, guys, do we want to have a freak out here? Do we want to have a national freak out? We are winning the narrative war. And as we just point out down there, right? As Arnie was pointing out down there, if you go to Gates's Instagram, he can't put a single fucking thing up without it being completely bombarded. Same thing with Marina Abramovich, that witch bitch. They are just getting harassed nonstop. And it's getting on Facebook, it's getting on Instagram. Normies are waking up to what's happening now. Have all normies? Of course not. Of course not. I know plenty who have not, right? But a lot have been waking up. And also, I don't want to get this too 3D, but the stimulus check actually from the perspective of making Trump not seem like there was some funny stuff. I gotta admit, it was funny. It's funny for me, but a lot of people, especially in the black community, were quite happy with Trump because this is like the checks, right? Because of the checks, and so the coalition, the cabal's coalition, is fragmenting. And the point is not that like to look at it in this sort of narrow lens, like, oh, like some people got money and now they like Trump, but it's that it actually changes their perception of him. Because it's like, oh, well, this is somebody who, like, he provided us this money and he's the first one to have done this kind of stuff. And it disproportionately has helped people in the lower socioeconomic strata. So it's, it's things are changing. I actually think the last holdouts are going to be a lot of upper. Yes, that's exactly right. Thank you for putting it in the right way. They're understanding that Trump can be good, and that this sort of one-dimensional picture of him, of just like this terrible racist person who hates it, just doesn't jive with reality. And once you break that frame, then other stuff can start to come in. To change someone's ability to perceive things, you usually have to do that. You have to break this perception of, because for a lot of people, it's just that Trump is this barrier. They can't get past Trump. I have a lot of smart friends and they can't see it. But I think I'm starting to make some headway because I'm pointing out to them like, hey, the left has actually been way more on this shit for the last 50 years than the right. Like the right has been mostly blind. You had the Birch Society early on. The Birch Society was very woke to it. But after the Birch Society, the Republican Party was pretty much taken over by neocons like Cabal, right? And so after that, we had a situation where the left was the main people who were criticizing it. And I remember growing up, and I was, I was 16, so I give myself a little bit of a pass. But with the Iraq War, for instance, right? With the Iraq War, like the lefties were the ones who saw that this was all bullshit. And it's only been Trump that sort of broke their ability to think clearly. And this is a partisanship that both sides have, right? Both sides have this level of partisanship. If the person who had been leading the charge out of this was JFK again, maybe a lot of conservatives would be against him, right? They'd be in favor with the cabal. So just because Trump happens to be on the Republican Party, it doesn't mean that this has not been something that has switched teams. But I pointed this out to a couple of lefty friends recently. And it's like, you guys are always on this stuff. And it's like, now your brain's broken. It's like, you can't think clearly anymore just because it's Trump, because he fits this archetype that you've created for yourself. And look, it could be that we're being fucked from both sides in the end, and that this is a ruse. And there are people who say this, and I'm very open to the possibility that, this is just factions in the sort of broader, deep elite that are, one is fighting against the other, and one's destroying the other and taking power. It could be the case. Um, but the other way to look at it is like I can keep an open mind with that, but am I going to be against Trump because he's destroying people who are Moloch worshippers because they're like very, very evil? Like, am I going to be against him? Maybe they have their own elite agenda, and maybe it's not as pure as I think it probably is, but maybe it's not as pure. But it doesn't mean that right now that he's not deserving of support, because I would much rather eliminate the more dangerous enemy than one who has an agenda down the road, right? So this is kind of the way to, yeah. Bap did talk about this a bit. Um, he has theories about how Trump is maybe trying to negotiate on his own. I don't really buy that. I think that whatever Trump is involved with fully. It's not that he's. Um, I don't think that Trump is. Let me just say that I don't think that he's trying to negotiate with these people in our favor. I think that he's probably just fully in on whatever it is, whatever that agenda is, because he's far too prominent. So, last little couple things here. So we talked about Gates's Instagram. Just wanted to like throw out a little fact in case you guys missed it, but remember that one of Gates's top in-house, like literally lived in Gates' house for a period, in-house engineers was found with child porn on his like thousands and thousands of documents of child porn. Okay. So how many people do you know who have found that you let live in your house, right? That you got that close to you that were found with thousands of documents of child porn? Yeah, you didn't know anything about it though, right? Just brush that under the rug. Who didn't know about that? Oh, it's really weird. This guy who is, one of my top engineers, personal engineers, tons of child porn on his computer. Hmm. Hmm. Don't look at me. I didn't know anything about that. And last thing someone pointed out that was kind of interesting was, this is very like out there, but I just want to throw out some facts for you. That some of the declassified CIA documents were talking about the Soviets and the Soviets program on ESP and psychic kind of usage and being able to change things with their minds and move it elsewhere. I got to tell you guys, all right, one of the reasons I hang out with hippies is because they are the only sort of sector of the world that hasn't been taken over, that does things like this and is able to manipulate energy, that has not been sort of pulled in to the government in some form. And one of the things that when I was reading this, and a lot of you guys, I appreciate, a lot of you guys probably watching this are the ones who sent me links to see this. I completely missed it. I would never have seen it without you. Magenta Pixie is great, and I wish I'd been able to see a bunch of her stuff. Those are some of the videos that I didn't have a chance to watch. But yeah, the Soviet stuff, right? So basically, people who were learning how to do ESP, if they started to figure stuff out, the Soviet government would pull them in to their own private or government sort of research center. So I just want you guys to understand, like, because if there's any normies here who are thinking about, um, like oh, this stuff can't be true. It's like, well, your own government agency, right, has declassified documents saying that the Soviets were doing it. So why would a government be spending millions of dollars on something if none of it was true? This is kind of stuff baffles me. Like this idea that, well, like there's no evidence, there's no explicit evidence. Like it hasn't been like confirmed. But Snopes didn't confirm this from me. Snopes didn't confirm it. It's like, guys, come on. Like when you get to this level of knowledge, you inevitably are reaching out into the unknown, and you're going to get things wrong. But if you want to try to figure out anything, you have to take that risk and allow yourself to experience errors and not have everything locked down, because I would much rather hold everything lightly and have things to varying degrees like correct. Like I know that this is wrong and I know that this is somewhat correct, and hold everything lightly and see what new info comes in that helps to complete the pattern. And by the way, the pattern that this cabal is being taken down is more and more apparent per day. I mean, look at the Cuomos, right? Now, I'm not saying they're like big Team Trump people, but there's some stuff going on with that. Andrew Cuomo defending Trump, saying he's been great. Chris Cuomo saying he hates CNN. It's a piece of shit gig. He hates what he does. It's all bullshit. I mean, these are little steps in the direction. I'm not going to pretend to know everything, and I think that people in Q they get too excited about trying to think that they figured out everything, and you're not going to figure out all the codes. And I think that's part of the reason that we have so much. Some people are having a letdown after Easter is because there's too many expectations being built up about direct timelines. I have not heard about stuff directly with Ellen being called out. I did see that Oprah looks like she has an ankle bracelet, same as Ellen. So let me go back and answer some of these questions. Do you approve of President Trump's order mandating everyone check their temperature rectally every hour? Nice. Um, I can't believe I read that one fully out. I thought it was something else that I saw before. Maybe coronavirus was the CIA's misjudged contribution to the trade war. I mentioned this a while back that there was a lot of arguments that maybe the CIA or someone leaked it because there's different factions in the cabal that maybe someone leaked China's weapon or China's research, whatever, and that it created all these problems. We don't know, and we probably won't ever know fully. But I mean, the point is that this has been engineered. And I was arguing to this guy on Twitter like a week ago, and he was like, just because like okay, all the stuff that you said was true, but just because there was a viral research center there doesn't mean that it came from there, and you can't say that. And literally, like later that day, news reports started to come out like, hey, actually, it probably came from the research center. And this was just a guy's like a credentialist stooge. Guys, credentials. It's the messenger over the message. It's not about the credentials. If someone has credentials, you can listen to them. But the thing is, someone with credentials should be able to make a better argument than someone who doesn't have credentials, right? If the credentials mean anything, it just means that, okay, you're a PhD in this. So me, little rando, should be able to talk. Like if I talk to you, you should be able to wipe the floor with me, right? You should be able to tell me, like, explain all this stuff to me and point out where I'm wrong. And that's cool, right? But your credentials are really just should be downstream of the fact that you know all this stuff. So if I talk to someone who's a PhD and they can't explain shit to me, I was talking to my dad's doctor and I was talking about alternative diabetes treatment. And I was explaining these different pathways, and he's like, well, we just prescribe this. This is what you're supposed to prescribe for it. Like, well, you shouldn't do that. It's like, well, do you even understand the pathways into which diabetes like affects like blood sugar? Like if you were to do things to lower blood sugar, wouldn't that eliminate the need to take things like glipizide or glimepiride, which are drugs that increase insulin flow? And he was just a credentialist stooge. He's retired now, but it's like this was somebody who I'm going to follow the protocols. He's an administrator. He's not really a doctor, and that's why all the good doctors, and not all the good doctors, but a lot of the good doctors, a lot of the really smart doctors, they leave the system because they're not allowed to think for themselves. And just to riff a little bit more off this is hydrochloroquine, or I'm always saying this wrong, but HCQ, right? That's what's happening. Is that you have doctors who are like, well, this should work. I'm going to prescribe it. Hey, look, it's working. Oh, we didn't have a double-blind, random tested study. This is really negligent for you to do this. It's like, well, was that doctor, that Hasid doctor in Queens, right? Or Brooklyn? Very high epicenter of the virus. He prescribes HCQ and Z-Paks, right? Arithmo, I'm going to pronounce it wrong. He prescribes that to clients who have coronavirus, right? 1 death out of 700 cases. And results, if it's treated before cytokine storms, like it clears it out. But yet, this is like, oh, you didn't have a double-blind study. Like you can't do this. You got to wait for Gates's vaccine. You got to wait for Gates's vaccine. You can't do this. Really tired of these people, to be honest. So, Pfizer rollout starts before May 1st. Well, we have right now, the investigation is really kicking into full gear now because now indictments are starting to come out. It's little by little, guys. It's a very gradual process, but I'm starting to see the normie flip, and it's gonna hit pretty hard over the coming months. I don't know. I'm very hesitant to give exact timelines now. To be honest, I thought that we would have the cure announced officially this week, and that we would be back out by May 1st. It seems like some states are going to be out May 1st, others May 15th. It's hard for me to imagine it going on past that, but like Memorial Day weekend in New Jersey. I mean, can you imagine people not going to the shore? I don't know. I can't imagine it. So I don't really know how it's going to play out. I mean, New Jersey, New York really could be lingering maybe into the early summer, but we're going to start to see in places stuff loosen up. And I know that's not FISA, but I think that there's a connection to all of it because the coronavirus narrative, in some ways, covers up a lot of the other things with FISA. Um, Not 100%. I think it's all happening, and I can see the timeline. It's like the next 6 months are going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy the next 6 months. But I don't know who Mouthy Buddha is on Pizzagate. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that? That's interesting, Arnie. Um, yeah. Oh, I wanted to mention this thing about Trump, which I thought was kind of interesting. My mom sent me it. It was from this preacher, and he was talking about how it's called the Hebrides sort of well, revivification or something like that. Basically, at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, there was a big religious upheaval or revival. Revival, that's what I'm looking for. Revival on the Hebrides, and there's two older women, and they're trying to get this big religious revival going. And there was a this young boy named Donald, who was like 16 years old, and he really attached himself to the pastor and was like basically this energy behind the revival. And that boy's cousin came to America in 1936 and married a guy named Fred Trump. And when she had, fourth child was Donald, and named after this sort of religious figure in the Hebrides, Scotland, and um, was given the guy's Bible, and that's the Bible that Trump has in the White House. I thought it was a very interesting story because there's a lot of I think it's important for people to look at the energy behind certain things. Like I'm sorry, I can't from a resident's perspective and other energy workers similar. I just can't from a resident's perspective see that what Trump is doing is somehow evil. I can't see it. I can't see it. And I see lots of disinfo, but it just doesn't mesh. So, yeah, well, look, China has been raping Africa. I mean, I know that Europe did that for a long time, but that's the kind of funny thing with the narrative. It's like they talk about European colonialism there, but then you have China doing the same thing. And I mean, it's pretty terrible stuff. I mean, I don't necessarily want to say that it's worse or whatever. I think that there's arguments to be made on different ways, but I mean, the reality is that they are exploiting the country is 100%, and obviously extraordinarily racist, extraordinarily racist. And the Gates vaccine was going to be tested out in Africa. I mean, that was like the idea of it. I set my location to Nairobi, Kenya, because I don't want on Twitter because I don't want to see anything that Twitter pushes down me. Which was actually kind of interesting because I got to see a lot of Africans talking about the vaccine and pushing against it. And I talked about this before, but this has been a history. This has been done for a long time, using it as a guinea pig area. So let's see here. Best doctors, non-partisan medical groups. Yes, exactly. Plus zinc as well. Yeah, they are sinking their own ship, and I'm telling you, like I've been watching. And by the way, guys, I want to say this just because I'm reading questions now. And I don't have enough. If you guys have questions, like throw them out on the list now. So put the questions out. You guys got questions? But I think that the media is definitely destroying itself right now. I've never seen it. Remember, a couple days ago, it was like within 3 minutes there was 4 different CNN headlines, like angry, demented Trump, like throwing rage at media over checking him on his distruths. It's just this it was like it's watching like a temper tantrum. And that's what I see now. It's like I feel like I'm watching a temper tantrum. Like they're like, yeah, well, you did this stuff, but you're not saying you couldn't do anything better. Like you didn't do anything better than like. And I give Trump credit for just not even entertaining the question because that's frame control right there. Not trying to answer pedantic bullshit, just steamrolling over it. But that's what it really is, and it's especially funny. I mean, because like they've gotten everything wrong with coronavirus. They've gotten everything wrong. So you can talk about Trump maybe could have used the time that he bought in January by closing down things to China. You could argue that he could have, maybe done a little bit more in February and early March. You can argue that, but you certainly can't argue that anybody else in the country was saying anything at all that was going to be in favor of that. Right? The media would have attacked him regardless of what he did, and you can see it that they were saying this is flu, right? Coronavirus is the flu. Don't use masks, right? You're racist for shutting down things from China. Just the usual garbage over and over and over again. So I like that it's just like humiliation session for him. I feel like this is like the daily pressers are just like, how can I humiliate these people more? And it's great. You have Brian Seltzer's that fat piece of shit. He's here today. He's like crying, like, I just couldn't take it anymore. It was wearing on me so much. Like, shut the fuck up, Brian. You bitch. Shut the fuck up, Brian. You're such a little bitch. You fat faced little bitch. It is the funniest thing in the world to watch these people. It's comedy. I feel like I'm watching like a comedy show. Um well, Dr. Phil for sure has to be, and Fauci, I think they probably are. I mean, a lot of the stuff, I like how as Trump was doing this. He's been criticizing things that Fauci's done without criticizing Fauci. And then when the media says, "Are you thinking about firing Fauci? You can't fire Fauci." He's like, "I don't want to fire Fauci, right?" But he gets the media to actually plant the seed, and then he defends Fauci. And this is very good politicking, where you seed stories out there, you sort of seed impressions, and then you deny them, and you actually let them do a lot of the work for you. So then people are like, well, wait, Fauci and Trump were disagreeing because I didn't notice that. Now people are like, oh, Fauci doesn't want to use, you know, HCQ. He doesn't want to use hydrochloroquine. Wait, oh, that's weird. And then, so this is like part of the disinformation process. It's very sophisticated stuff. But Dr. Phil, I mean, Dr. Phil's 100%. 100% in that stuff. Uh, Unfortunately. Well, actually, I don't even want to say unfortunately. I don't really care about Dr. Phil, to be honest. Everyone knows the virus isn't bad, and they go to the press briefing every day. Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I don't know about. I don't know. Like, I know that it isn't as bad. It isn't spreading in the way that they have said it would. There are people who are getting really fucked up from the virus. Um, I think that there's too much disinformation about it, and we're gonna get the truth of it. But I will say this. I do believe that whatever this is, the evidence that we can treat it with hydrochloroquine and antiretrovirals and antibiotics and zinc and vitamin C and chaga mushrooms, right? Those last three a little bit, but this is something that is very, very treatable, and the fear around it is definitely out of control. It's out of control. And if anybody else was talking about it, if the agenda is so clearly and overtly fear at this point, it's not about any sort of power. It's not about doing the right thing. It's all about fear. So I'll check out Mouthy Buddha. Yeah, yeah. His attacks do have that flippancy, and it's oh man, it's so funny to watch the entire thing. Um, Favorite personality type. Type in Mind has some good material on MBTI. I use MBTI always. How do I feel about Florida opening beaches? Well, look, you have countries like India and Thailand. I mean, this is like billions of people, right? Over a billion people. It's just not happening in big numbers, and probably has to do with the heat. But I think that the summer is going to be fine. Now, is there going to be a second wave in the fall? That's very likely. Or I won't say very likely, but very possible. It's very possible there's a second wave, right? Spanish flu had a second wave. Do I think it's going to be much worse than this one? No. I think we're going to be much more prepared for it, even if it was. I don't have any fear at all, guys. Zero fear about this entire thing. And I got to say, look, okay? My business is down like 90% because no one's socializing. So who's dating, right? No one's socializing. Even if you're in a relationship, I mean, you're kind of stuck in a lot of like there's a lot of more exposure. You don't have as much time to kind of go out and get away, and so my business is down 90% since this thing has been going on. But I don't have any fear about it. It's okay. Everything's gonna be like we're gonna get out of it. All right. It's just this is just a period. It's a realigning period, and ride the waves, right? So, how do I feel about Florida reopening its beaches? I mean, I think I get it, and let's see. Let's see what happens. But I've been reading a lot about how they are calling deaths as possible coronavirus, and they're going to count it in a lot of states as being coronavirus if the person died, and even if they weren't tested. So that I've been reading stories like my uncle had, serious lung cancer. He was dying, and they put down on the death certificate that he had coronavirus. It's like, well, we don't know that he didn't have coronavirus. We don't know that he didn't have coronavirus. And look, guys, like this is the kind of stuff that makes people be like, is there even a fucking virus? Is this even a real thing? Because it's such bullshit. And it's so clearly designed to inflate the numbers. And I get it. You don't have to go super conspiracy with this because hospitals get more money if they call it coronavirus and there's no downside for them. But it's been incentivized like this for a reason. A lot of these hospitals are empty now. They're actually like at the point where they're going to be losing money because people aren't going in. It's kind of interesting because we're seeing the entire prior structure collapsing on a certain level because of coronavirus. And this is why it's like, oh yeah, I'm down business. Like, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, it's going to be fine. Things are going to be better when it's over. I'm happy to take like a month, 2 months, 3 months dip. And I'm blessed. Like, we're at my parents' house and we're keeping our costs low. But we're going to get through it. You have to stay positive through this entire thing. I mean, Tom Hanks is just. Oh yeah, I definitely predict. By the way, Trump 2020 landslide. I don't see how it could be anything else. I mean, Biden is senile. Like even when he's on CNN, like you can see Anderson Cooper. He's trying to talk about. I think he was trying to talk about the Defense Production Act that Trump enacted, and he was referencing Roosevelt and the War Production Act. But it was very tough because he just was rambling for like half a minute, nonsensically, and he's like looking down, like, what am I talking about? And Trump's been making fun of this. He's like, Joe Biden was saying this, and he's like, well, let's be real, like Joe Biden didn't actually think this. Someone told him to say it. Joe Biden doesn't know what he's saying, and it's like I love that Trump's saying this, but it's so like just direct to the point. This guy is senile. Tom Hanks' performance on SNL. Uh, it was very weird. I saw some stuff going on around how parts of it look green screened. I don't know. It certainly didn't look like his mansion. That's what the main thing people were pointing out was that it didn't look like his mansion. I've also heard that those pictures of him in Australia that were like him in the car, that they were actually older pictures that were shopped. Who knows? Certainly, everything around him has become very, very strange, impossible to parse normally. And again, we have Ellen with ankle bracelet. We have Oprah with an ankle bracelet. I mean, anyone. This is another clue. Like nothing that these celebrities are doing is normal. It's very, very strange stuff. So I don't know how people cannot see that that's happening. Wouldn't it make sense to tell everyone um, about simulation and the learnings? Maybe you can elaborate. You stay safe too, man. Well, compatibility for IS. I mean, trying to stick to this subject, but theoretically speaking, you're looking at ESFJ, theoretically speaking. But people are drawn to people for different reasons, and I think it's more important to see who you're attracted to and then type them afterwards to understand your compatibility better, rather than to try to determine compatibility based on analysis, because that takes you away from the heart, which is where you connect. How do I feel about hospitals overcounting deaths and reporting untested deaths for money? Well, I mean, yeah, I was just talking about it a bit. I mean, I think that it's like I like on a non-conspiratorial bent, I get it because they're losing so much money. They're probably desperate to call anything. I mean, I've heard about people getting into like car accidents, being they died, you know, broken spine, broken neck because you're on a motorcycle and you got hit by a tractor trailer, like coronavirus. It's like possible coronavirus. I mean, it's corrupt. But look, I mean, what was it? If you watch the Vax documentary, I mean, doctors lose enormous amounts of money because if they don't prescribe even children, babies, like HPV, hepatitis B vaccines, things that are just sexually transmitted diseases. Like I think one guy's practice said he was losing $700,000 a year because he wasn't doing that. So the healthcare industry is so disgusting because of the incentives are so disgusting. It's not really doctors. A lot of the people become doctors because they want to help people, right? But they end up, it's like, well, I can make half as much money in the system if I don't follow the system, or maybe I'll lose my license if I don't follow the system. So some of them leave, start their own practices, but that's very difficult because you have to get people to give up their insurance. And young people try not to buy that much insurance, and older people would prefer to have the government ones like Medicare. So it's a very difficult. It's difficult. You have to be really, really brilliant, I think. And people who are good, like very good, and have the right heart and mind, uh, it's tough for them to start these practices because you have to really develop a specific reputation for yourself to get really, really rich people. If you can't get rich people to back your practice, you can't make it without being in the system. And unfortunately, most of the people who are really sick are not rich. They're poor and they're sick. And so at that point, you're just doling out meds based on what the protocols tell you. You become an administrator. Oh, you're getting paid. You getting 2.5 worth of something, man. You're lucky. I haven't got anything back from. I applied for a business loan. I didn't get anything back. I don't know. Payroll could be part of it. Maybe we'll see. I don't know if Biden will make it till November. I don't know. I think anything's possible, guys. With the timeline, I mean, things are moving. I think a little bit slower than they could have moved. Uh, let's just say that like I was thinking about this analogy today. You look at the cabal, like we're playing a chess game with the cabal. And Trump and the alliance, they're playing a chess game. If you're really good at chess, you know when like both players know when the victory's been won, unless one side makes stupid mistakes. But if that one side continues to operate correctly, victory is certain. There's nothing the other person can do. But what they can do is they can drag out the game for a very long period of time. And I think that we are seeing a lot of that happen. And I am happy that people are waking up. You are seeing more normies doing it. I am still frustrated that a lot of people still can't see it. A lot of people still can't see it, and there is still a lot of fear in the air. A lot of people are depressed. They're getting cabin fever. So the cabal is like they're bleeding this out. I mean, they are not going down without a fight. We do not want to underestimate them. We do not want to make a couple of wrong moves and they can get the upper hand again. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So, so I don't think it's just a political game. The disease. I think that I think its creation and release was political, but um, I don't think it's made up. Yep. So, World Economic Forum is controlled by cabal. All those global governance ones are controlled by cabal. 100%. I don't think that there's an exception to that. NGOs are actually a major source of corruption itself because a lot of child trafficking, like child protective services, right? This is what I love. And they always hide just right under the radar, like right in plain sight. Child protective services, oh, we're taking children from these homes. A lot of those children, obviously not the majority, but a lot of those children get trafficked. That's what happens to them. There's people within those organizations. I'm not saying everybody, but there are people within those organizations that are connected to the cabal, and they will funnel specific children out. towards directions. And guys, another reason to not watch porn is that a lot of the girls that you're watching came through that trajectory. Random girl in a video and no name in a very sketchy, disgusting environment, doing sketchy and disgusting things. She's been human trafficked. So when you quit porn, it's not really just about you doing it for yourself, but it's also the fact that you're supporting. It's not to make you feel guilty or ashamed or anything, because how would you know? But you're actually supporting human trafficking, because the vast majority of the women that you see who are in that are trafficked. So, what specific point did the cabal know they lost? Well, I don't. I've heard different things. I think we can say certainly when Trump won the election, that was, you can definitely say it then. But I've heard it's gone back energetically prior to that. I've heard it's gone back since 2012. Some of the stuff was inevitable, but anyway, guys, I think that's good. You don't have any more questions. It was good to talk. I'll talk to you next week. We'll see what we have happening this week. Maybe it'll be very exciting. Take care.